Welcome to the Genius Alchemist podcast. I'm your host, Sarah McBride, and in today's conversation, I have the absolute honour of speaking with my soul sister and great friend, Kerrie McCullough. Kerrie is a Liverpool-born artist and therapist with deep roots in shamanism and healing. For years, she's been driven by purpose and passion to empower, spread love and positivity, helping people heal and become who they've always wanted to be. She guides adults, young people and children to attain their truest potential, align their hopes and dreams and shine a light on their life path. Ever since she was a little girl, she's been highly sensitive of the energy of people and places. She often had spiritual and out-of-body experiences. She yearned to explore other states of consciousness, which led her to train in shamanism and psychotherapy. She's travelled far and wide to ancient sites, studied a multitude of cultures and delved into life's mystical side. The pain of others left her buckled and restrained by shackles, and all she's ever wanted to do is help ease their suffering and burdens. She'd always loved creating art from an early age. You will hear the full story in the podcast. But what she explains is that you either see a painting or surrounded by animals. Every blank space is a story waiting to be told, and self-discovery led her to life-affirming realisation that art transcends many languages and worlds. It's a medicine and vessel to manifest what we wish to create. Once a piece of artwork has been commissioned, she's guided to channel and create certain spiritual guardians, power animals and symbols. Past life gifts and teachings may also become present, evoking soul remembrance and reclamation. So let the magic begin. Hi, in this episode, I have the absolute honour of having a conversation with my beautiful soul sister, Kerrie McCullough. Kerrie has a really interesting journey, and that's why this podcast is going to be centred around purpose and inspiring anyone that feels like they may be lost in life, lost with the purpose, feeling like they don't know what track they're on. And, you know, purpose is something that I work with others on. And I know, Kerrie, you do as well. And it feels like a lot of people, even though the purpose is there and might be staring them in the face, they just can't seem to align with it, can't seem to see what it is. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there saying just living is your purpose, but that doesn't help people who are feeling lost and the passion is not ignited. And I feel like your story will, you know, enable people to tap back into that passion and look what it is that they can move into to give them a sense of true purpose in life. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to initially you just to start talking about how you do what you do now. And before we get into it, I am going to just, you know, tell people in advance about that amazing artwork that you've got. So if anyone's watching rather than just listening, so you can watch on YouTube, you can see your amazing channeled artwork in the background. And anyone that's ever seen any of my lives or YouTubes or anything of mine, you will always see this is my most amazing piece of artwork that's in the background. And I do have plenty of pieces of you, but this one's really special. So yeah, I'd like you to talk about your art and you know, how you become inspired to get into it, because obviously you're a shamanic teacher and a psychotherapist as well. So I feel like the art is what I'd like us to really get into today.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm really looking forward to what emerges from today. Yeah, with regards to the art and purpose, all these two subjects are very much entwined. And I know for me, as a starting point, if it's okay, I'd like to go back to when I was younger. Yeah. You know, where I'm sure you've come across this many times with people you work with, when you ask them about their passions and if they are unsure, if you take them back to when they were younger, often their eyes will light up when they speak about things that they loved, whether it's, you know, being out in nature, or whether, you know, it's you know, playing music, whatever it is, certain things, you know, people tend to know what obviously lights them up. And for me, how this all started is, as a child, I loved nature and I loved art. So as a child, you could always find me drawing and painting, or, you know, back then when I was growing up, you know, I was born in 74. So in the 70s and 80s, you know, what I remember is we used to have more like stray dogs. You often see stray dogs on the street, you know,
Yeah.
and you don't really see that
No.
nowadays, do you really? But you know, I really equate that with that era, and I can remember, you know, I'd always be, you know, around the finding a stray dog here, and knowing certain dogs, and there was a dog that lived in the neighbour's shed whom I ended up encouraging my granddad to adopt, you know, at some point when his dog had passed away. So all these things are entwined in my story. And what I'd like to say, I guess, at the beginning as well, is about having that sensitivity, having that, you don't know what it is at the time when you're a child, but having that sensitivity to whether it's dreams, or whether it's with visions, sense and energy. So being a sensitive child, that aspect kind of really informed what unfolded over time. You know, and when you're a child, you don't know. Of course, you don't know if you're having an experience that is spiritual, or if it's an experience where it's just your imagination. You know, so as a child, I was very aware of walking into someone's house or going to a certain place, and I would literally feel things in my bones. You know, we use that phrase, don't we? All felt it in my bones, or it cut me to the bone, you know. And as a child, they actually thought I had rheumatism, because my bones used to ache, and they used to almost shake a little bit. And
can I just say, not to interrupt your story, but
no, it's okay.
I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when I was 12, and it just disappeared when I got to a certain age. And when I looked it up, people saying, oh yeah, when it's juvenile, it can just go. But you've just hit on something with me, because you know the sensitivity I have, that actually it was probably the same as what you're describing right now. How interesting.
Yes, and I'll link this in with the shamanism. You know, seeing this has come up, is that so if we go back, similar to you, mine just went, and I couldn't tell you what age, I can't remember. But what happened, I'm jumping ahead here and then we can go back, but what happened, I must have been in my late 30s, something like that, around that age. And at the time I was with my shamanic group, and I remember we were doing a ceremony, and it was around releasing childhood wounds, or releasing something that you were still holding on to, whether it was conscious or subconscious. And we were having a fire ceremony. And I remember with the group and individually, we did a shamanic journey to go within and to be shown, you know, something that is still you're still holding on to, or something that's still woven within you. And what happened, which kind of really came out of the blue for me, is when I was in the shamanic journey, my bones started to rattle and ache. And I knew it took me right back to that age. And I knew because I've never felt that way in my bones ever since then. And it took me into that place to release that. And when I asked Spirit about it, that's what they said. They said that literally you were tapping into the energy, and at times you would be holding the negativity of a situation, or the negativity of a certain place, or that was held in the land, that was coming through your body. So you were like a tuning fork, basically, in that way. So that's really interesting because I didn't know that. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I used to be back in up and down the hospital to Alderhay every single week.
Wow.
And funnily enough, my joints on my hands, you don't know this actually, my joints
Yeah.
on my hands used to randomly swell. I wanted to be an artist. And they actually said to me, you, by the time you're in your 20s, you won't even be able to hold a pencil. So you've got to scrap that idea.
Wow.
So yeah, that was
Gosh.
we've got many, as we know, similarities, synchronicities,
I
soul
know.
sister journeys.
I
Like
know.
I remember the day we met in my old healing center, and
Yes.
someone introduced us, and we were like, looked at each other like,
I
Egypt.
know.
We just like went back into that. Oh yeah, we've had many lives together. Egypt was a really prominent one. I know that. So
Big time, big time. And yeah, and I think it's that thing, isn't it, where you may not have the information, you might have some of the information, you
yeah.
might not have it consciously, but you can feel it in your bones, that
Mm,
there's an understanding, or there's like something is being woven here in this
yeah.
space in between, and I don't know what it is, but it's familiar, but
Mm,
and that's the thing, isn't it, sometimes, which I think is really interesting. And I find with the work, when I work with clients shamanically, or even when doing the art, it is how we feel so many things, and sometimes it can be really hard to articulate it
yeah.
and actually give it form. And that's where, the beauty of working with art, that can be a form to channel that. Obviously people channel it through music, through the words, in many different ways. So it is very interesting what happens in this, in that expression of self, which about in all the work that you do. And also, what is really beautiful and really interesting is that you could have the same people, so you could have different people saying the same thing, but yet you hear it totally different because of
Mm.
what's behind their
Yeah,
words.
the energy, the frequency, the codes that they carry,
Yes.
and it just lands, doesn't it, with some people?
Yes. Yes.
Hence even why these podcasts were born. Because for me, I know I speak to certain people, and something they say just resonates, it lands. But I see lots of people out there in the arena, and it just doesn't resonate because the intention behind it, sometimes it's regurgitation, there's no embodiment. And I'm big in embodiment, and I know like all the people that I'm going to be having on this podcast are real embodied people in the work that we do. And especially you, like your journey and your integrity. That's why it was so important that I had you on, and I know we attempted to do this months ago.
You did.
And things didn't work out at that time because again, that we're led, aren't we, by spirit? And it's like, okay, that
Exactly.
that's not the right time, but this is now the right time.
Exactly. And with the timing, I think what is interesting, and what I would like to certainly, and I know you know this story, I'd certainly like to share this, because I think it's fundamental, and I see it over and over in the work that I do with clients, is how when we go through what may be deemed as soul loss, or depression, or a disconnection,
Mm.
and going back, again to when I was a child. Yeah, I was sensitive, and I was always drawing and painting, and loved animals. I found such joy and such connection from being with animals, and such peace. And then around age 14, I went through a depression. I really wasn't enjoying school, had a lot of issues with peers, lots of different things. And yeah, and I went through a depression, and it lasted a long time. And I remember at the time I went to the doctors. So fast forward, I'm age 16 now. Yeah, and I'm struggling, and I went to the doctors. And the doctor, I remember, it wasn't my regular doctor. My doctor was on holiday, and I won't say the doctor's name because for whatever reason, but I remember this doctor, and she said to me, you know, I think you left school too early. I think you need to go back to school. Didn't offer me counselling, didn't offer me advice where I could go to a youth centre, nothing like that. And I think what happened then, not only, even though I was in a very dark place at the time, I knew that that wasn't the person for me. I know she wasn't helping me get to the light,
yeah,
you know? And but also as well, as life would have it, not only did that start me off in a different way, I started more to look spiritually at that age and ask the big questions. What's it all about? Why do I feel this way? All these different things. But I also believe that it sowed a seed within me to then eventually work with children and young people.
I was thinking that was one of the catalysts for you working a lot with children and young people. And
yeah, because I just kind of thought I needed someone just to say, you know, I know you're going through a tough time, and this is who you can speak to, or this is what we can do for you. Not offer me tablets and say you went to school, you know, you need to go back to school. Anyway, so what happened around then is then I stopped creating, I stopped my art. And my granddad was always saying to me, "Oh, what about your art?" You know, my gorgeous granddad, you know, he was always saying, you know, and I stopped, Sarah. I stopped, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too much, but I feel like I'm going forward and then coming back. I hope
that's fine.
Follow, okay. But what happened then in the space in between is, I trained as a therapist. I trained in shamanism. And I was still having, you know, visions and spiritual experiences, but I never linked this up with the art. They weren't really connected. You know, that was that, and that was that. But meanwhile, you know, I'd wake up middle of the night and I'd see, like, if you imagine this constellation of stars, like what we see in the sky, but I'd see that on the wall, and it might be in the shape of a spider or be in the shape of a different animal. So I'm sat up in my bed, and I'm thinking,
what age are you at this point?
Oh, it happened throughout. It happened throughout. So, you know, it was all those type of visions never stopped. I might have a few a month. I could have a couple a week. It depends. So this carried on. And to be honest with you, this is why I went into shamanism, because I was scared of spirit. I didn't know what you know, why these things were happening to me, what it was about. And that's why then I started studying shamanism. And then my practice became working with children, and then training up other people in shamanism and running classes. And that's when I met you at Capucha. But then what happened, and this is where it connects in with the art. So this is now, so I'm now at this point 40, maybe age 40. So you've gone from 16, now I'm 40, yeah. And Sandra Ingerman, a Shamanic teacher, that's an amazing teacher who has taught many people over decades, was running a Shamanic teacher training course up in Scotland. And I applied and I got a place. So I found myself up in Scotland, and I'm with people from all over there. I think there was about 60 odd in the group, a big mixed bag of different people who were practitioners, and some of them were already teachers, but it was wonderful. Anyway, so it was a wonderful training. And anyway, what happened is after the first, it was a 2-year training course. After the first year, I felt guidance from spirit. They said to me, "You need to paint a totem for the group." And I was thinking, I haven't painted in years. I don't know if I can paint anymore, Joe. I don't know. And where do I start? And so initially I didn't want to do it. And what spirit said to me, which I think is key, is they said to me, you creating this isn't about you. You're doing it for the collective. You're doing it for the group. So it's you being in service. So the energy that you'll pull through for this image will be a gift. It's not about the, you know, what they were saying to me, you know, these are my words now, is it's not about the you that feels inferior and less than, you know, it's about you giving your gift to others, and literally bypassing that negative voice inside that says you can't paint, and people will think you're showing off if you do a picture and you bring it up to the group next year, all that type of stuff. So so basically, someone was throwing out a large canvas. I went and bought some acrylic paints. I bought some paintbrushes, and that's what got me started. And if we have a visual, it's the totem. You can see at the back there.
I've got a print of
it.
Oh,
you've got that, okay.
On the sides of the wall.
Yeah. And what happened, Sarah, is that when I paint certain animals on the totem, I would have a certain emotional response. And I didn't know exactly why. First of all, I was guided to paint, you know, a fox and then a stag and all these different animals. But it plugged me back in. It plugged me back in. And that was what started me pulling in all these pieces of the healing work I'd done, the art, the visions, and bringing it all together. And you know, and yeah, it happened much later in life, but hey, you know, it's never too late, you know.
Yeah, doesn't it all? I mean, I feel like my purpose changes like constantly. So, you know, as you know from me, having the healing centre, but still practicing, been on the path for over 20 years, but it was more about giving everyone else a platform. But then that was because I didn't realise I have visibility issues. So I wanted to put everyone else in the limelight and me just pay for it and work as a corporate business consultant and pay. And then it was almost like, okay, now I'm going to help coaches, healers, therapists in business and do this. And now the alchemy, which I've been doing for over 20 years, but I've only started doing it in my work. So similar to you, what I was doing as a child, like all my outer body experiences and, you know, my visions, my intuition and the magic and, you know, the Wiccan lineage, and then bringing that into actually work where it was always just who I was. It's only just starting coming, and, you know, and as you know, I'm 42. So it like similar to yourself, I believe that can be the path, coming full circle. And, you know, I am going to link anyway, just talking about that totem, your Instagram and website and everything else in the show notes. So anyone that wants to actually look at this artwork that we're talking about, you know, real time, you can do that. And I think even mine, I think you've got some old posts, haven't you, as well, with mine? I mean, mine was a bespoke one. Yes. So, because you do, I just want to let everyone know, for the purpose of this, you have prints of ones that you've channeled, and, you know, they've got meaning behind it, and people can buy prints of those, but they can also order a bespoke one where you go on a journey, and what comes through you paint. Maybe talk about mine was a nightmare, but maybe talk about
I was exhausted.
Yeah, my bespoke one, which, if people see, it's got the owl, which in my last house was a farm. I mean, this is a farm as well, but I had a barn owl that lived in the barn, and then here there's a barn owl, and this is my healing room. It sits outside the window sometimes, you know, and I don't even think I told you about that. But then the owl comes up. There's the wolf, which looks like my dogs. There's the panther, which looks like my cats. It's on Egypt. It's on the Nile, isn't it? And that's where we first had our link of past life. And there's the rose, and I trained in the Magdalene Rose codes, and there was, you know, the diamond that I was bringing in, and I did diamond activation. So you wouldn't have known that because I didn't tell you. So because I didn't tell you, and then when you went on this journey, and I'm like, hang on a minute, I've been doing stuff with Venusian codes, and you've painted Venus and not a moon, So I think that's interesting to tell people, because that's a real example of what you do.
Yeah, I think, and I think the beauty of it, Sarah, it is that it's a surprise. It's a surprise to me. It's as like shamanism is the path of direct revelation. When painting, you might have an idea, and I like to work, if someone wants a bespoke piece of, I call it soul art. If someone wants a piece of art in that way, we work together. But what will happen as well is that intuitively, it's like I'm working with them. I'm working with them on, in the space in between. So I might go to paint something, but then another animal comes in, or it might be that a certain landmark, or like with your painting, like what you said, it ended up being aspects of it quite galactic.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's an intention, and sometimes it unfolds, or when I get a canvas, like someone could say to me, oh, yeah, that they really love lions. Yeah, they really love lions. So they might want a lion on their painting because they really connect in. And we could have that as a starting point. But usually what happens on a very organic level is the minute someone starts to communicate with me, I might see crystals. One time someone spoke to me and I was seeing the lapis lazuli, the beautiful blue lapis lazuli. And so I'm thinking, do I need to paint that crystal on their painting, or do I actually buy the crystal and that's placed somewhere within their painting? I might usually see a certain scene, which could be past life, it could be present. I could see it in a certain time of year. There could be nature spirits, power animals. There could be a reference to the family. So I might get, say, for example, I work with someone and I kept on getting a certain flower, and I was thinking they haven't mentioned that flower, but I keep on getting a certain flower, and they said, oh yeah, that actually connects in with their family lineage. Also as well, something which I think is really interesting is that regarding sacred sites as well, sometimes there might be, like, whether it's, I don't know, Glastonbury, Avebury, Machu Picchu, Stonehenge, there might be a certain site that kind of, whether it's in this country or elsewhere, that also kind of comes in. And it could be that they're due to go to that site. So they're due to go to that site and connect in with their energy, which then is connected in with the past lives. So it becomes, like you mentioned, alchemy before, it becomes that process to the point where, everyone, if someone wants a piece of art like that, it will be unique to them.
Yeah.
And also there's something that I did want to speak about today as well, is that piece of art will hold a vibration. So even if someone may not logically kind of think, I don't fully know what I'm meant to think when I look at it, often they will feel it. They will feel it, and it can act as a portal, as an opening for them to connect in, maybe on a deeper level, or whether they want to manifest, whether they want to manifest certain things in their life, really connect them to their true self, their authentic self. So that's how this aspect of the art, what wasn't ever planned, it just it organically unfolded. So it's a surprise to me. And even, like, say, for example, when I was painting yours, there'd be certain days where when I get the canvas, no one else sees it. No one else sees that because it's sacred. It's sacred art, and you would be the first person to see it, which is rightfully so. And so for me, when I'm working with that, with that canvas, I will wrap it in like, a cover and place it near my altar. So it feels like it's like birthing a baby,
Yeah.
it's, and all that goes into it. So, what, do you mind me asking? Because I remember I remember you going upstairs and you unveiled yours.
Yeah.
And I'm always a bit nervous because obviously I don't know.
Yeah, I remember. You were
I
terrified,
don't know.
handing
Because
me over this gift wrapped painting, and your face is like, just go upstairs in your healing room and just take your time. And it's okay if you don't like it, and blah blah blah. But I remember crying, opening it, and the feeling I got, real palpable sensations throughout my entire body as soon as I looked at it. And then I had it. At first I brought it down into my lounge area.
Yeah.
And I remember hosting a course, which I usually did on Zoom, but something happened, and connection and whatever. And we all said, let's do it at my home. And everybody was mesmerized by it. And everyone, and then someone orders one. I think someone orders one as a consequence of seeing mine. And then, for me, it was like, these are a big part of my healing work, because this is my space where I do healings and, me retreats, like private retreats, where some of my one-to-one clients, they stay over in this cocoon, and this is the room we do all the healing, and they become mesmerized by all of the art. And I haven't just got that piece, I've got prints, but I've got the original wolf artwork as well. And I even got me drum, which I want to touch on, me drum.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with your art, just to elaborate on what you said, that there's a soul remembrance, but there's also an acceleration of something. Mm-hmm. So I got the drum, and I remember it was a lion and a lioness. Mm-hmm. And there was the ankh on the lioness, and it had like a multicolored mane, the lion. And you said to me, it represents the masculine and the feminine union. And at the time, obviously, I was single for a long time. And and then it was almost like, okay, what's now going to unfold? And then there was a remembrance, and then the person that it was meant to be. So I remember him telling me that he had an ayahuasca journey, and he saw himself as a lion. He didn't know about my lion and lioness drum, by the way. And he's saying he saw himself as a lion, and then he was a Leo moon in his astrology. And then it was like, I was still oblivious at this point, but it was almost like there was a activation, because I remember speaking to my astrologist, and he was saying to me, there's something you don't know just yet, but when you do, you'll understand why. And I felt like the drum was also an acceleration of that union for me.
Yeah.
To for him to come in, and the way in which we worked together. And it was everything that you described in that journey with the union of the lion and the lioness. So I don't feel like it was so much a portent of this is what's going to happen, but it felt more of an acceleration of what was there. Yeah. To call it in.
Yeah, like a magnification, like and it is, it's really interesting, because what I was thinking of when you were talking, then I was reminded of something. So I'll share. It's come up. Is, I think so often, we really want the blueprint, or the 3D, don't we? Like, okay, now I know it's here. Now I know it's manifested, or now I know it's coming in whatever way. And so often, Sarah, and I think you'll resonate with this as well. So often I am shown, and I was just shown this image, which I'll share with you, is that it happens this way around. When I was in this is where I was shown, when I was in Guatemala, we did in 2012, we did a lake ceremony. And I can remember when I tuned in, I experienced this guide that was the lady of the lake. and what happened is that she showed me these stones across the lake, and the stone didn't appear, and then you stepped on it, and then the stone appeared.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what I find, that it's when things are being woven, or when things are being manifested, it happens on so many different levels, and so often we're really wanting the confirmation of it, aren't we? Time and plays such a massive part, doesn't it? Your time and coming back, actually, just full circle with regards to when you spoke at the start about purpose. I was just thinking about something we spoke about before, about how people can really, sometimes when people feel disconnected and they feel lost, going back to what you said at the start of the podcast, certainly for people to look at what they did as a child, if they've been friends with people for a long time, to have conversations with them, say, how do you remember, or how do you see me? Those people that are willing you on and championing you in that way.
Yeah, because we can become disconnected ourselves. So sometimes, I say this a lot, it's not always seeking validation from external sources. Sometimes it's I've been through that much stuff. I'm that disconnected from who I am. Who do you remember me to be? Yeah. What lit me up when we were together? What were those things that made me passionate about?
Yeah.
And that does give indications.
Yes, exactly. And one thing that I always say to clients I work with, whether they, whatever age they are, children, teens, or adults, is if they can spend as much time in nature. Nature will help you plug back in. Yeah. Even if you're feeling, in a very, a place where you are lost, to spend as much time in nature as you can, to really help you reconnect.
Animals as well.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I know that's our thing though, so we're going to say that, but no, yeah, we're like the crazy cat and dog women.
Exactly.
Like, animals for me is like that's my go-to is animals. And you probably see that recent clip I put on social media about the farm that I went to in Spain, and the Starseeds farm, I think it was called, and there was all the white animals and white horses and white donkeys and white cats and white dogs, and all these animals. And I know that just being there, it's like, boom, this is why I remember who I am, and I remember why I'm doing this, and I remember me bigger goals, and wanting to own an animal sanctuary and set up an animal sanctuary, but self-fund it. That's one of my things as well, to rescue animals. And then that drives me my purpose as well. So it's all interwoven of, okay, put yourself out there more. You've got to do that, because you've got to, whatever it is that you're doing is then going to help create this other part of your life and component. And I know that's huge for us. So I know there will be a lot of people that will kind of get something from being around animals, because they are natural healers.
Oh, big time. I know when not long after I'd done the workshop at Capucha, and then I went and worked with horses for a while, and one of the biggest things that I got from working with the horses, and I did some shamanic workshops outside, where the horses were there, and there was a big group of us. It was so beautiful. Is when you go into that heart resonance with them, and you've got, and I know you'll know this, when you've got the horse's eyes and they gaze towards you, I was so blown away, because it was like being let into, it reminds me of that film, The Secret Garden.
Love that film. I read the book as a kid, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Love it.
There, what I found with horses, I didn't grow up with horses. I went horse riding when I was a kid, but this work I did with the horses, I felt that they give me a key. I felt like I was let into a secret garden. And one thing that was really, 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 really strong and has never left me is when I connected in with them and really tuned in with them. When they looked at me, they didn't let me forget who I was at the core. So that's the best way I can describe it. When they gazed upon me, they reminded me who I truly was. And it blew me away. I was like in floods of tears, and that, I think, is the beauty of being around others or being around things that inspire you, that go, there you go. Yeah. This is at the heart of who you are. You know, this is soul remembrance, and we know it, whether it's in art, whether it's in a teacher, whether it's a place on our earth where you go to and you go, oh, I feel like I've just reclaimed a part of me.
That's what I felt like with all them animals, and and he was crystals and he was sound therapy and he was all these things, and I just didn't want to know. I was just with the animals, I had a donkey one side and a horse the other side, and I'm just stroking them, and then the dog's running up to me, and then there's a little pony running past, and for me, I was just like, I could stay here. Like, this is, and it's hard, isn't it? Because I know, I've been on safaris and stuff, and I've, met animals in the wilderness, or should I say observed them, because I never went up to them. But then it's hard where you can find somewhere where ethically there's animals that live there, like where you're not paying and it's not exploitation. That's another thing. So it is difficult to be around. So, I just have loads of pets, as you do. Yes. It's like, I'm surprised one of them's not coming in today and joining.
I know.
You can probably hear my dog tip tapping in the background, one of them. But yeah, it's that for me. It's that, like, okay, this is why I want to create like this real, and this has been something in my childhood, like my real love for animals. And these times when I was neglected growing up, but I had dogs and the dogs looked after me. And, it's that real kind of affinity to animals, and how can I give back and what can I do for animals now. And I want to touch upon something you mentioned about the heart resonance with the horses, because something I was recently shared with me was about animals through the Heart Math, I think it was, Institute, that did some work to say that they sync with your heart frequency. So the ears are so finely attuned, they can actually hear, and then they sync. So then if you're anxious, they're anxious. And I think this is probably where it comes from, where animals take on our stuff, and people think this is, oh, how can they take on your stuff? But if they're syncing in with who you are, of course they're going to take on your stuff, and the work that we do, because we're so open to working with so many people, our animals are here helping us to transmute. And I've even had people on retreat here saying your cats and dogs are part of it. They feel like they're healing them as well. So yeah, it's I feel like my purpose is going into all of this more. It's twisting and turning again. So this conversation's coming at a really good time, because the animals are being more interwoven in some way.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, isn't it? Because it can be like that. Your work, your purpose, it can be like a tapestry. A tapestry of this, a tapestry of that. And it was interesting, thinking about what us doing this talk today, because I was aware that it could go to so many different places, and but it is interwoven, isn't it? The animal, for me, like coming back to the art for a sec, quite a lot of my artwork is also around the great mother, the divine mother, the children, so being a voice for children, being a voice for animals, also the healing story, which for me I was taught a long time ago in shamanism is, what is the healing story? Of course we work with the shadow, whether it's transmuting, working through, but then what is the healing story we carry forward? And I think, Sarah, right now, I believe we're all being called to really step up, really step up and be seen, and also be seen in the spirit world as well. You are being witnessed, and what we do with that, and what we leave behind. When we leave behind this spacesuit that we've chose to be in this time, what do we leave behind? And that is also I think very, very humbling as well. Very humbling, and everyone has got something to share. Everyone.
Absolutely. Everyone's got a story.
Yeah.
Everyone's got something that, that's going to add value to someone else's lives. The problem is most people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, who am I? Who am I to say? But one small resonance in my view is that we have, soul contracts on many levels, and souls assigned to us to work with us, for us to show them the way, for us to help activate them. And then we have soul contracts for other people who are there to help us show the way. And it doesn't matter. It's more of an energetic than what they say, but they're going to get the shift because energetically we've embodied a set of frequencies, and then through that, just being in the presence, and there's a lot of stuff out there, by other people saying, people are ridiculous, thinking if you're in someone's presence, you're going to get a shift or a healing. I know I've been in someone's presence and had a shift or a healing. I know for a fact I've felt it, like a real strong sense when I've walked in. I know there's loads of alchemy between us two as well. When we're only dropping a Christmas or a birthday present off, and then it turns into a cacao ceremony and music and drumming and dancing or something. Yeah, there's always dancing. Yeah, always dancing. There's always something that goes on. We're like, oh, just drop that round, and all of a sudden it's like, a little party going on because there's alchemy.
Well, do you know what I didn't say to you because we got into the podcast, but at the very start of the podcast, there was an orb about so big going around at the back of you.
Well, there was on you. So there was on you as well. I swear there was on by your right shoulder on the left side of the screen. There was an orb as well.
Oh,
so that's interesting. I was going to tell you afterwards.
because at first I was like, is that a fly? And then it was kind of doing, moving in a certain way and everything. So yeah, this is it, isn't it? About kind of it's magical, isn't it? It's all there, and I think what is so important is if people have their free will, but they do want to, if they do want to connect in it, is to know that it is all there for them. It is all there for them, and it's just finding they might need someone to help them reconnect with that, or it might happen for them organically. But to really connect in with that magic, and also what they have to, what gifts they were born with, what organically they've come in with, and what then they can share with others. It's
I think confidence
so important.
is a huge thing. From what I find with my clients, confidence, not feeling good enough. And I feel like that comes with the territory when you're doing work that we're doing, because, many lifetimes things have happened. People kind of, there's this thing where, well, if it's not science, then it's not true. And, science hasn't caught up with spirituality yet. So, we can be eons ahead in lots of ways, and used to negate our experiences, because we've had some pretty fascinating experiences that people would be like, you're crazy, or what's that, or how can you see this? And I think because of that, because people are constantly not believing in what you say. It's almost like a form of gaslighting, because it's not your reality. So it's not their reality. So they can't see it. Because they can't see it, then they don't believe it exists. And I think because of that all these experiences we've had from such a young age, that you then learn to not speak them out loud. You learn not to share them because your own family don't believe what you're saying. So because of that, then you can develop real core beliefs and core programs that nobody's going to believe you anyway. Then I'm not good enough. And then who am I to speak this? And so even though we embody it, like, this was a big struggle for me in my visibility. 20 odd years of doing this and having phenomenal experiences, and knowing I get, when I work with people, the alchemy happens. But then on some level, it's like, well, what do I know? Because the more you know, the more you realize you actually don't know anything. So then, because of that, the people that are, in my opinion, that are really embodied in their practices, the less likely to put themselves out there, because they develop all these programs, because it's been happening for so long, people have not believed them. And then you see people who, I don't know, might have been on the path 2 months, learn some things, and they're ready, and they're out there, and they're speaking it out, because they've not been pushed down, they've not had people not believe them. And we're in such a special time now where it's growing. But even 10 years ago, it wasn't like this.
No.
20 years ago, definitely it wasn't like this. So I think that can create those issues to close people's voice, because I know it did mine, especially around my visibility. So for me, some people have got, well, everyone's got a gift, but there's some people have got these gifts that are just too scared to put themselves out there.
Big time. And I think it is that thing about being seen. I mean, there is also that element, I think, or speak for me personally, where it's like, don't get too big for your boots.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are? Or say, if you've experienced jealousy from others, it could be like, oh, I'll play small, so then I'm not a threat. I'll play small because then I'm not loved, or I'm not liked. All these different things. And yeah, and I think when I if you think about it, going back to the totem story I told earlier, is that was such a clever way for spirit to get me to start painting again.
Absolutely. You were tricked. You were tricked into it.
I was totally tricked. Yeah. I was totally tricked. And also given a really big lesson, as in, sharing your gift is to be of service. That energy imprint and that vibration is what others will feel, and that is the most important thing. Not, am I good enough to paint this?
Absolutely. And I think this is the calling for everyone. Like, this is for me, this is the transmission. This is what my podcasts, underlying the undertones is. Everyone's got a story. There's something for everyone, everyone's purpose, letting people share the stories, but also inspiring other people to put themselves out there, no matter what, because every single person can help somebody else with just a share. It doesn't have to be a podcast, doesn't have to be, it can be, a post on social media, it can be anything. It could be meeting one person in the street and sharing their story. But we all have that story, and we all have some sort of gift, everybody. I don't like this this concept where people say, you've got main characters and then you've got non-players, or something they call them. And it's like, they're the main character, and they're just, their human life is just to be a non-player. And I don't agree with that. I believe, even no matter what you do, it's not about your job. Purpose is more than your job. Purpose can be your job that you get paid for. Purpose can be how you put a smile on each other's face. My postman cheers me up every single day.
Yeah.
You know, as he whistles, and I think you've probably met him as he whistles coming down the path, and you know, when he's really jolly, like that's purpose. But people want to wrap purpose up in this big elaborate, you know, we have to be this and we have to have a certain amount of money and we have to change the world in this way. But that, to me, my postman, he's got purpose.
Yeah.
And, you know, so for me, there's no non-playing characters and main characters. Not that doesn't even exist in my mind, you know.
No, and I also think I think that's quite mean-spirited, even in, you know, when you know, you know, to kind of, even I think, to think that way, because how do we, you know, if we think about the great mystery, you know, how do we know? How do we know what part people are playing? Even like, say if you're at a party and someone, you know, someone is really, you know, rubbing up everyone the wrong way. Who knows, you know, what part they're playing, as in triggering or bringing up stuff for others, and what healing can happen out of them. You know, we don't always know. We don't always have all the information, you know. Yeah. And like what you said there, like regarding like your postman, you can meet someone, and you know, when they walk in a room, they might not have the label as whether it's therapist, coach, practitioner, this, you know, whatever it is. But yeah, they come in, and you can see that their energy, how they shift the vibration of the room. So absolutely. You know, people you know, work in many different ways, many different ways, and it doesn't always come in a certain form by any means.
Exactly. So this is an invitation from both of us right now, people to think about what is their unique gifts, and what drives them, what lights them up, what are they passionate about, what is ultimately your purpose. And if it's something from childhood, which that was my initial starting point, you know, how can we weave that into where we are now, even if it's a hobby and it's not what you paid work, you know, it's fine.
Yes, exactly, because, you know, it's how it makes them feel and how they connect in. You know, exactly. if that helps them reconnect or connect into, you know, the universe, or connect into source, or feel connected to self, then that's the guiding light, isn't it? Absolutely. You know.
Well, thank you, Kerrie, for today.
Thank you.
I've loved having you on. Really, yeah, obviously we could talk for hours, and we do.
Exactly.
So I'm going to link all your details, but if there's one way in which people could contact you directly to find out more about what you do, your artwork, commission a piece of artwork, you know, what's the best way to contact you?
They could email me, and that's Kerrie, Kerrie, at radiantgaze.com. That's my email. Okay. Or they could contact me on Instagram, which is radiantgaze_art, ART. Yeah, radiantgaze_art.
Amazing. Well, I will drop everything in, all your links in as well. And I'm just going to say to people, like, obviously, this is not just because, you know, my relationship with Kerrie, but because, you know, I've got paid artwork all over my room, you know, and the code and the information, the way it makes you feel, it definitely accelerates something. So yeah, I would implore you to go and look at what it is that Kerrie does in terms of art, because she's very gifted and talented. So thank you, Kerrie.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Genius Alchemist podcast. If this episode has ignited your curiosity or inspired you in some way, then I encourage you to subscribe and share with friends. For those that want to stay in the loop and be the first to know about future episodes, special offers and free resources, make sure to check out the link in the show notes. By joining my mailing list or reaching out through that link, you'll have exclusive access to all the latest updates and ways that you can connect with me. I look forward to sharing more inspiring stories with you all in future episodes.